Hi there, my name is Sarah Bell. I'm a startup building advisor and co-founder at LeapSheep. And I'm here to talk to you today about building a viral product and the secrets that basically behind the products that spread like wildfire. I will apologize. I'm eating a lot of cough. I call them cough sweets, but I think in America they're cough drops. But I will do my best to continue for across the full time. I will allow plenty of time and space for questions throughout. And one of the things I'll do today as well is go through the type of process that you can use to go from idea to first MVP towards product market fit. So I will start there as well. I'll share my screen and then we can begin. Okay, so yeah, so this is just who I am. What we do at LeapSheep is we coach and train startup founders on exactly how to transform their ideas into hypergrowth businesses and avoid the startup graveyard. But today, I'm really just going to chat to you about some of the early things you want to think about when you're thinking about building a product that can go viral. This topic is specifically targeted towards early stage startup founders. However, the process that I'm going to go through today does work if you have existing businesses, if you're software developers. I hope this also gives you an extra bit of perspective on how to build the foundations for a product that can in the future go viral. Okay. So there's just, so as I mentioned, specifically for early stage founders, there are a couple of inputs which if you know them or have something, an idea in mind, they will help you with this actual, this activity, because I am going to do a bit of a go through some of the steps. So if you want to actually take part and actually do some of this for yourself, the two things that you need to have in mind are, do you have a definition of exactly who your potential customers are? This is commonly known as a beachhead segment. So it's your first early adopter customers, and it's a very specific definition of who those customers are. So start to think about that as I kind of talk through the rest, and then we'll come back to that later on. And then kind of critical to building a viral product is to really deeply understand who they are, independent of your solution idea, software, or your offer to them. So who are they? What are they spending time on? What does success look like for them, or what are their goals? And most importantly, what are some of the challenges that they are experiencing in their, whether it's their work, if you're kind of B2B, or their broader work and life, if you're thinking about a product that is B2C. So just kind of a couple of things to think about, and we will come back to these throughout. Okay, all right, I'm just going to take a quick break. If anybody to have a cough, if anyone has a question, I'm happy to answer now.
And if you want to put things into the chat, I will try to bring those forward as well.
Great, thanks, John. Okay. So what does going viral actually mean? And again, I think the word exponential was well known in the startup ecosystem. And then obviously once COVID hit, kind of, I think most people now are quite familiar with that exponential growth. So it's kind of, like that hockey stick growth is what exponential growth looks like. The goal for founders and startups in particular is to have some sort of organic spread that you want your customers to be talking about your product. So that, if I think about the first time I heard about Airbnb, Canva, Uber, all of those, it was not through an advert, it was through somebody sharing that with me. And so having that organic growth where your customers are telling other people about you is absolutely ideal. Now, virality is based on behavior triggers, and I'll briefly introduce those because it is worth knowing what they are. So people share products for a number of different reasons. So whether your product or solution makes them feel something, whether that's excitement, happiness, surprise, that's a reason to share. Or people share things that make them look good or like they're in the know. That kind of thing is particularly true, I think, for some kind of social media platforms, but also educational content. That kind of thing is why people share that. Useful information, similar to people sharing things that make them look good. People love to share useful information. And of course, if your product or your solution solves a problem or makes somebody's life easier, then they'll tell other people about it. These are just a couple of examples of behavior triggers. Now, there is one exception, which is well worth knowing about. So, if your solution is the secret sauce or that gives your customers a particular competitive advantage over, say, their competitors, then it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to spread organically because people will be keeping it a secret. If that's the case, then there is a way around that, because you can think about explaining what you do and talking about the fact that you are the competitive advantage that their competitors are using. So just to call that out. Another thing that we have found with one of our customers is he's got a specific solution for farmers, which is all around helping them to manage their finances. And another way around the lack of virality that there might be from farmers wanting to compete is to explain the fact is to build a community around it. And so with him in particular, we've said, actually, if you talk about building up the community of farmers so that everybody is more successful, then again, that encourages that virality. Okay, so now we've talked about what going viral means. Let's do a bit more to uncover the secrets of viral products. Before we do that, though, we are going to look at the concept of product market fit. I know a few people mentioned it, and I just want to come to that. So just so you know, so that's a little bit of an intro, really, about kind of virality and what that means. Just so you know what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the concept of product market fit and why it's so critical that that is a goal of any founder, anyone that's starting a startup. We're going to look at the key strategies behind viral product success. And then we're going to spend the most time on actually creating a first product that customers love. I think everyone here is kind of in either idea stage or starting to think about an MVP or open-minded. And so the activity and the exercise that we're going to do today should help you to get some of your ideas down. And then I'll have a practical recipe for you on how to go forward and next steps. I'll just pause in case there's any questions.
I'm blathering into the chat, but I'm not seeing any questions come up.
Oh, Katya, you've got your hand up, but I can see it says you've got no microphone available.
Right. Is it working now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. First of all, get well soon. Thank you for the intro. I meant, so I'm starting from an art selling perspective. It's not, great art, but just mine. So building a product around software, I understand, around something a person needs, but no one needs art. People want art, but they don't need it. So I realize I am having trouble getting into the concept for, something that isn't needed. Could you elaborate how I could start getting into the right mindset for getting myself there?
I mean, there's two ways you can look at it. Is there a pain point that I can attach this to? Or is it you're creating a moment of delight for an individual? And so if you think about the pain, and again, looking at it from the pain point of view, there is a pain which is around my house, and again, I'm assuming that this is it art like sculpture or art like paintings?
It's actually it's sculptured paintings. So
okay. Yeah, because I mean, really, there, and again, depending on who your target customers are, I'm gonna make some assumptions. So, for example, you may have, and again, Tesla, I think, is quite an interesting analogy here because like nobody needed the first Tesla, but he specifically marketed to very high net worth individuals in Silicon Valley with the first Tesla model. And so I would say, kind of for you, one of the things you could think about is am I targeting, or is my target customer individuals with a lot of money, perhaps, who are looking for new and interesting ways to spend it, and perhaps have something like the new thing, or to show off to their friends when they come over. That might be the kind of thing that you would think about in terms of then it's both a pain and then creating a gain. That would probably be the simplest.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, I'll go next. John, just stop me if there's questions that I'm not getting to. As I know
Yep.
that you manage the chat. Yep. Okay, so let's talk about the concept of product market fit and why it is so critical. Now, you'll see here, so the definition of a startup is really I'm kind of taking from Steve Blank here, who's the author of the Startup Owner's Manual and a general all-around startup expert. Is a startup is really a temporary organization in search of a scalable business model. And he's coined the term search phase, which really shows the journey that it takes for a founder to get to product market fit. And typically this journey kind of looks a lot like this, kind of lots of ups and lots of downs, as you're kind of experimenting with your idea, with who your customers are, whether you have kind of a solution that can work for those customers. And then product market fit is typically, and I'll come on to the definition next, the role of product market fit is once you've hit it, it is at that point that you want to grow for growth. So it's at this point that you want that virality that we're talking about and is the topic today to kick in. If you start to get virality when you have perhaps a product that's not well thought through, not well understood, and then you try and attract virality too early, then you're basically spreading a product that people may or may not want and that doesn't necessarily have the business model around it. So let's look next at what product market fit actually is. So this is a definition that we have kind of worked on and developed over the last 9 years that we have been working with startups. These 5 criteria signify product market fit. So it's when you've created a product or a solution, in this case I will say product, just because we're talking about startups and scalability here, that solves a problem that is a pants on fire problem. So it's a problem so significant it is as if your pants are on fire, so you are going to solve it for a very specific group of customers, and that's that beachhead that I talked about earlier on, so a specific customer segment. These customers have become raving fans and repeat buyers, and also active advocates who spread the word about your product. This creates a positive feedback loop, which drives profit and exponential growth to you, and you don't need to push your product on the market with marketing. Your chief focus has shifted to team and company building in order to meet demand. Now I'm going to next introduce you to the disruptive innovation journey, which is kind of our core IP of the framework for how to get to product market fit and then scale. And so it's got 4 key stages to it. The first, which is pre-revenue market validation, which it sounds like was where everybody is at the moment. So I'll talk about that in a second. The next is initial pilots, where you're starting to deliver a first solution, which may or may not be software, to those customers. The next is when you are validating that you have reached product market fit, so that when you scale, you don't do what X, for example, has done and scaled a business model that is still struggling to become profitable when it requires a lot of capital investment just to keep going. Now, the first elements here of this pre-revenue market validation, I'll start with team vision fit. Now, this is where you are looking at the industry, the industry trends. You're looking at technology trends. You're looking at kind of the competitive landscape and what your vision is in order to get started on the journey. So, is it actually worth the effort of building a startup to begin with? And this is very typically kind of a research phase. This next stage, which is problem market fit. This is where you, of all potential markets that you've identified over here that you could kind of start with, what is the most compelling customer segment that is likely to have that pants on fire problem? Like, what are the characteristics of that segment so that you can then go off, find a minimum of 20 of them to speak with and interview, which we call, it's known as user research, and I'll kind of go through the framework for it in a minute. But the point of this is to validate that you've actually found a segment that has a problem that they're looking and willing to pay to solve, and they have specifically in their top 3 problems, the problem that you think that you can solve. And so here the analysis is making sure that there are patterns of that same problem so that you don't just kind of create one solution for one person and then someone else wants something different and someone else wants something different. Like, that is consultancy work. That is not kind of the basis for a product type business like startups. Once you have completed that user research and done the analysis, the next element is actually, right, from what I have found, what I understand about my customers, what is the first solution concept that I could put together and test with them by kind of seeking their feedback and on what I think the solution might be, and positioning it in relation to their jobs to be done and the pains that they told me that they had. And this concept market fit is absolutely critical to make sure that you don't build a product that nobody wants. And it's the element between, which is the bridge between your customers' problems and your solution concept, that is where I'm going to go spend the most time on today, because this is the step that critically most founders miss in their kind of rush to get an MVP out into the market. And so just to call that out, this is the element I'm going to be focused on today. Now, once you have validation from the people that you interviewed that the concept kind of meets a need or a problem that they've told you about, and that they think that the solution that you've told them about will actually help them to be successful, and they're willing to put money down, sign a wait list, to actually kind of validate that they are interested and willing and want to test what you have. Only at this stage is it worth then creating and designing a solution. And that first solution may or may not be software. Sometimes it's software, sometimes it isn't. It's a manual solution that you can then Jeff Bezos with Amazon is a great example of this. Like, his first solution was not Amazon.com. It was him with a landing page, people putting book titles in and their address, him going off, buying the book, delivering it, and getting paid for it. And that was how he validated the concept that then became Amazon. One sec. Okay, the next stage we call initial pilots, and this is where you validate that your solution technically works and that your customers are able to get value from it, like it actually solves the problem that they have. From here, and again here, you may have multiple iterations of your solution, and it's likely to go from being a manual solution into software solution, and you may iterate multiple times based on feedback. The critical element to think about here is to do this in a very small scale way. So ideally, with the 20 people that you interviewed, if they have the problem that you think that they have and they're willing to pay to solve it, it's likely that you will be able to get between 5 and 10 of them to actually pay to pilot with you your first solution. And that kind of 5 to 10 is an ideal number to over-invest working with and spending time one-on-one with them with, to make sure that the solution works and that they get the value from it. And I'm happy to talk more if people would like about how to actually do that. Once you've tested that, then you can start to make sure that people are using it or engaging with your solution kind of repeatedly, not just a kind of, they signed up something once and then never look at it again. And that you can acquire them repeatedly, and you know where to find them, how to find more of them, and really critically, that the metrics of your business model, that you know what they are, so that if you start to scale, you're actually going to make money, and your revenue will scale exponentially, and your costs will stay much lower. Because of course, having those metrics in place mean that when you then invest in scale, that you're actually making money and you don't require excessive capital to keep going. Now, the critical thing I want you to take away is that most people try to go viral from the very beginning. And this is, I've spoken with, I would say, over 1,000 founders over the last 5 years, and all of them are thinking about virality when they first launch a product. And typically this is too early. It may take you weeks, it may take you months, it may take you years to do this. But the point at which you really want to go viral is when you've made sure that you know that your solution works, that people are getting value from it, and you know exactly what that value is, that they're engaging with your solution regularly, that you can acquire more of them, and really critically, that the metrics stack up so that when you scale, that is going to not break you and require you to just have capital. Okay? All right, I'm going to pause there just in case there's any questions come through.
There's a question by Priscilla about avoiding negative publicity, negative virality.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Priscilla, this is a fabulous question, and I will explain. This is the approach that we take founders on is in response to your question is this. And I'll give you an example of a few customers I'm working with right now so that you can see how it works. So if you can keep, so the people that you've interviewed here, and again, it's not, like, I'm happy to talk more about this because it's not easy to find potential customers in your sub segment, thanks John, in order to interview. It's not an easy process, but typically if the problem that you're thinking of solving is so significant, people will be willing to speak to you first up. And then because you're taking the time to actually get to know them, listen to their problems and challenges, and people don't invest in this. But what it means is that you will build your personal credibility so that they are willing to spend time with you again, both to review and give you feedback on that solution concept and to test your first solution. And your first solution may not work. It may have loads of bugs in it. It may not deliver the value, but because you've built that individual relationship one-on-one here and here, almost always people will give you the time and space, and they will overinvest their own time as long as you're overinvesting your time, so that you can make sure that the solution works and that it gives them value. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. So one of the founders that we're working with, her name is Margot. She has a solution for occupational therapists that basically does all of their marketing and scheduling and non-clinical work for them. So she's got 7 customers that she did user research with, she tested the solution concept with, and then once she got the solution working, she then had a real struggle with the tech. And those occupational therapists have waited for 2 months while she sorts that tech problem out. None of them have told anybody else. She's kept them up to date with what's going on. She's kind of set their expectations about when things are going to be ready and working again. And she has just restarted the pilot with them now. And none of them have given any negative press or media that ends up getting criticized. And it's because of the fact, it's because of the fact that she's working individually with them, and they know her and they trust her, and that there's no other solution out there for them that works. And that's why this non-viral element, which is here and here, is the critical element to get right first before you look for virality over here, because it means that you can like identify any bugs, identify moments of delight, and then kind of minimize or get rid of those bugs, and then increase the moments of delight on a very small scale. Hopefully that answered the question, Priscilla.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to tack on another question, but I don't want to like derail you too much. But another question would be like damage control of because mostly I'm thinking of kind of the cancel culture that is out there, and a lot of it is in my industry. And luckily, we haven't like been a part of that, but I see it all around us. And it's very scary. Where like for instance, just having like a disgruntled ex-employee or something saying something and everyone's like freaking out and like, hey, let's tank their project and stuff like that. And it's always scary, just things out of your control. So I think that's where a lot of my anxiety goes of like, hey, we have a lot of people who are very happy to work on the project, but what if one day they're unhappy and stuff and something bad happens? I don't know.
Yeah, John, I don't know if you've got anything extra to add into that. Because from my point of view, I was kind of expecting that actually what you meant was customers using it, whereas really what you're talking about is disgruntled employees or ex-employees that are looking to sabotage.
It can be both, but I mean, like for me, we won't get like customers way later in the project because I work in the game industry. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is that whole thing needs to like go through the process before you actually start seeing your first customers. But it can work with like beta testers and alpha testers as well. But it like just people are also just hyper critical on the internet as well. So that could be something.
And so there is no particular path by which you avoid hypercritical people. And for the most part, if you plan to do business, you will get to ignore those people. And if you have a core group of people that love you because you're creating value for them, then this is not really a problem. You will build a core of people that work with you because you build trust and create value, and you continue to do that. And if you engage in trying to answer those people who are disgruntled and not ever going to be customers again, then you just build more amplification. And so the best thing to do is to be quiet. and to focus on creating value for your customers. Now, I would argue with you in the gaming industry. I still think that there's a lot of room for pre-alpha engagement to resolve key elements ahead of time before you scale, and to get people to pay you in the pre-alpha so that you know that they're customers. But that's, a long conversation.
Thank you.
The last thing I'd say as well, which is a new-ish trend, is the concept of building in the open. So quite a few of our founders have successfully done this, where they may be doing user research or testing their solution concept, and they are sharing kind of their vision and the impact that they want to have, and then also some of the challenges that they're facing and how they've overcome them. And that has become a particularly popular way of building credibility, kind of socially as well as individually, one-on-one with the people that you're doing the testing and the piloting with. Stephen, over to you.
Sorry, so I thought you were hinting that up to initial pilot validation, you're kind of in stealth mode. And so then, Priscilla's problem wouldn't actually exist because nobody would really know who are you complaining about. But now you're saying, why don't we do things in the open?
Well, the two can work together. And again, we actually, unless you have something that's got really critical kind of IP or like what I'd call breakthrough tech rather than business model tech, then I think if you're doing breakthrough tech, I can see the reason to do stealth. All I would say is that initial testing of your solution or your product, it is that you're doing quietly one-on-one with customers. You can talk about it on social media, but you don't want to encourage lots of people to be using your solution. So for example, like we often work with founders who've kind of launched a product on an app store, like if they've built an app, they've launched it on the app store, and then of course they launch it, but they have no idea who's downloaded it, who's using it, what value they're getting out of it. And so that's the reason why you want to overinvest your own time with those first customers, even though that's completely not scalable and you would not do that when you've got the kind of 100+ customers. It's just so you make sure that your solution works and that people can get value from it.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, I will continue on. So, okay, oh, hang on. Just need to resume share. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce a few of these steps that go under each of those milestones that I just showed you so that you can see. So the topic we're actually going to do today is value proposition design. It's a technique that's been created and kind of made popular by Alex Osterwalder of Strategizer. And there's a few elements that we have kind of added in or built into it, which I truly believe this is a really great starting point if you are starting to think about your business, to give you more clarity on who your customers are and what you think your first offer or solution to them is. And it leads really nicely as a great link between that problem market fit, so making sure you've got a customer with a problem, and then solution concept fit. By showing you the timeline of things that happen in the order, it'll also give you an idea of kind of the steps to do first and then the steps to do after. So I'll just go on. So and again, these are some of our internal slides, but I do think sometimes the process to go through to product market fit seems very tricky and difficult. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit of it here. So that first stage, that vision market fit stage, and I'll go through this briefly, but it really starts with having a business model hypothesis. So kind of how you're going to make money, what your solution idea is, who your customers may be, research, so you actually know that there's a business worth building, having a compelling vision of the impact that you want to have on your kind of all your potential customers 20 years from now, and then also your mission. So how are you going to have that vision? This bit here is all around the kind of the marketing side. So actually starting by having an audience statement that attracts people to you on LinkedIn, X, kind of wherever you are and wherever your customers are, and actually starting to create problem-aware content so that you can start to attract kind of people who are interested in what you're doing. Having your go-to-market hypothesis, so all the potential customers that you could ever start with, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Having a hypothesis for what the customer experience might be that you think you might create, and then typically this results in kind of the first market section of your pitch, which you may or may not want to get kind of validation or of support from kind of people in the industry or in the investor space. So that's kind of the very high level bit, which is kind of a precursor to what we're going to talk about next. The problem market fit stage that I talked about. So that starts with having, from that market segmentation that you did over here, having a very clear hypothesis of exactly who, like what is the ideal beachhead to start with. And from there, you then need a kind of a campaign to actually get user research interviews or conversations. And typically that might be a social media campaign. It might be an in real life, like if you can go to where those individuals hang out. One of our founders has just really successfully spoken to his target customers, which are college associate degree college students, by actually going and sitting in the cafeteria, and he has done 20 user research interviews in the last 2 days using that process. The actual interviews themselves should focus just on the customer, and I'll just kind of briefly go through this framework because I think this is the framework that people are most interested in, which is, so this, and again, this is a one-on-one conversation with the individuals that are in your specific customer segment, and the point of it is to build your individual trust and credibility, but also to really understand who your customers are independent of your product. So don't talk to them about your product at all. You might want to talk about the vision for the impact that you want to have in order to get the conversation, but then it's just research about them. So, and there's 6 parts to it. The first, which is, how would you describe your day? What are you working on? Kind of what are your priorities day to day? And then, and again, these are catered more towards B2B, but they can be adjusted to be B2C. Like what are your goals? Like what does success look like for you in your job so that you know what they're aiming for? Then, and this is the critical element that helps you to uncover if you have found, if the idea that you have for a solution solves a problem that is a pants on fire problem, and that is what challenges or pain points are holding you back or keeping you up at night. Like what are the obstacles for them doing the things that they told you that they were doing up here, and for actually helping them be successful. And you want to spend as much time as you can on this area, eliciting from them some of their biggest challenges or problems that they have. For each of those challenges, and again, I would say typically you want to pick their top 3. If they give you a massive laundry list, you do want to ask, like, of those challenges, kind of what are your top 3? And for each of those, how often is it a problem or a challenge? And what's the impact? Like, is it costing them time, money, like wasted effort? What is the impact? Next, you want to ask, again, for the top 3 challenges, what solutions are they using to try to solve those challenges and how do they fall short? And then lastly, kind of where are they looking for help to overcome these challenges? Because that will give you an idea about where they're looking for solutions. Are they looking on social media? Are they using offline resources? Like, in the person I told you about who's doing the user research, like he's doing it with students. And so they're actually using a lot of in-person resources like a financial aid office. They're not going online to look for help, but they are on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat. And so those are the ways that you might be able to reach them when you get to the stage where you're looking for more. I'll just pause there because I'm only showing this so that you're clear on the framework should you wish to go and do user research with your potential customers, which I would strongly recommend and suggest, by the way. It's game changing how much you can learn doing this. So I'll pause here.
Not seeing any questions come up.
Okay. Oh, Stephen, I think you've got one.
Yeah, I think last video I saw of you, you said you forgot at the end. You should also ask, can you? Who else should I talk to?
Yes.
So are there other things I've forgotten?
No. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. So there's a couple of elements. So if they are in your ideal customer segment and it's a great idea to ask if they would introduce you to someone just like them so that you can have more of these conversations. And you want to set their expectation that you're going to come back to them in, say, a couple of weeks once you've concluded your research to present back the problems and the challenges that they have found so that they can learn and kind of get value out of that, and so that you can present them with the solution concept, and just get their feedback on whether they think it would help them to overcome their challenges. And typically, if they've been willing to chat to you once, they will almost certainly agree to chat to you a second time. And if they don't, there should be a good reason.
Yeah. I think about this in the context of the lean canvas, and I'm looking at the two upper corners. Who's the customer? What's their problem? Who are the early adopters? And where's the existing alternatives? You're essentially getting to the existing alternatives with question 5, which is a great thing to build your detailed competitive matrix. But how are you thinking about early adopters? What makes one of these people I randomly talked to in the cafe an early adopter customer?
Yeah. So an early adopter is an individual who has the problem. They know they have the problem, so you don't have to educate them. They're either already paying to solve the problem with existing substandard solutions, and they would be willing to work with a unknown startup founder because the problem is so significant that they would work with anyone to help them to solve it. Now, there's a few ways that you can work out who your early adopters customers are. So if throughout this exercise they're so kind of taken with the vision that you told them about initially that they're asking you kind of like, tell me about what you're doing, like tell me more about this, like what's the product, what's the solution, that is a good indicator. And if they do that, then you can say to them, happy to talk to you about kind of what we're thinking. I'd just like to finish this research first, because it's critical that I get this knowledge and understanding about you and people like you, so that I don't just assume that you want what I have. So that is a really great indicator if they can't stop asking you. If they are kind of contacting you or reaching out to you to find out kind of when can they speak with you, that's another really great indicator. If they're willing to introduce other people to you, that's another really great indicator that they're early adopter customers. But you will not know until you have done the presentation back to them of your first solution, so that they can and so that you can get their feedback on the solution. Because again, you want that solution concept and that market fit, which is the kind of the element that I'm going to take us to in just a minute, is how to make sure you've got that. Okay. All right. Any questions on user research? If people want more resources on user research and how you can use it, we do have a few newsletters, and I did do a workshop specifically on user research in August that we can share the links to.
There's a question in the chat about whether this applies to services rather than businesses and work.
Yeah, I agree with John. So this really does apply to any business that has a customer payment for value. We've designed this specifically for founders who are designing completely new solutions to like new business models. But we've also worked with business owners who have used this to understand who their customers are. It also works if you're going into new markets. So Purple Bricks is a really good example of a company that worked really well in the UK as a real estate tech company, and then they tried to go into Australia and New Zealand and launch Purple Bricks, and it spectacularly failed. And it was because they didn't understand the market there, and again, understanding the market outside and away from your product or solution. The biggest problem that I've seen with really great potential founders is that founders tend to assume that the market wants what they're selling, and usually the market does not care about what your product is unless it really solves a problem for them. Okay, I'll continue on. Oh, hang on, is there another? Okay. All right, now, okay, so that was, before I go on, so how this all fits together. So once you've done those user research interviews, and again, we typically suggest a minimum of 20, because if you interview, say, 4 or 5 people, if nobody has a problem that you think you can solve, then stop or look for like a different problem that you might also be interested in. Oh, hang on 1 second, I just need a quick cough. After 4 or 5 interviews, if you're seeing that there isn't really a problem there, then you may want to rethink about who your your beachhead customer segment is, maybe there's another kind of more compelling segment that you can pursue. In which case, do that, because if no one has any compelling problem, or you don't think they're going to be an early adopter customer after 5 interviews, then that's a really good indicator that you perhaps don't have the right market, or they might have other problems that are way more compelling and painful that you hadn't been thinking about that actually are interesting to you, so you can continue on down that route. We've seen both of those things happen. Stephen, go for it.
Well, it sounds to me like when you're doing this customer research here and you're saying they don't have the problem, it almost sounds like people are telling you their days are all fine and they have no problems at all. I mean,
Oh no.
how do you
No,
match?
everyone's got loads of problems. My experience of, and I've done about 600 user research interviews with founders. I've never found people unwilling to talk about a problem. I can't, that's why therapy is so popular in the US, right? Like, people love to talk about challenges and things that are keeping them up or holding them back.
So you're sort of suggesting that you have something in mind that you want to build, and then you go talk to people, and they tell you all kinds of problems which have nothing to do with what you have in mind.
Yep. So the question there, I think you're asking is what if they tell you about a load of problems that are nothing to do with your solution? So if that happens, and that does happen, you can then, after they've kind of finished getting that off their plate, you could say to them, look, the problem I'm thinking to solve is this. Like, for us, for example, like the problem we're solving for founders is kind of typically ambiguity on the startup journey. And so if I say, you've kind of, it sounds like you know what you're talking, like what you're planning on working on. Is that true? Or are you sometimes stuck as to what you're planning to work on? And then if they say, oh my God, yeah, absolutely, that's a really big problem, then I can go, okay, yeah, that is a problem, and we can talk about it a bit more. If they say something like, no, that's not really a problem for me, then it's not a problem. Or if they go, oh, maybe other people have that problem, but I don't really, then again, it's still not a problem for them. And then you have to decide, are the other problems that they're telling me about interesting to me? Or is this just not a big problem for them, and therefore they're never going to prioritize kind of either working with me, testing the solution, using it, or telling other people about it, in which case you want to leave them. Sorry, that came out wrong. You don't want to leave them. You want to continue the conversation and thank them for their time, but you may not book a follow-on conversation with them. And if that happens with everybody, then it implies that the solution that you're thinking of building is not needed in that particular market. I've got a hand up from, is it Arjun?
Yep. So my question, or like criticism of this user research approach, is that imagine if Henry Ford asked, do you want a car? And they would say, no, I want just a faster horse. Yeah. So if I go and talk to beekeepers and I explain that, yeah, I want to build this robotic beehive, or even if I start with what is your daily, routine and problems, they will gladly tell that, yeah, they have these beehives and they manage them. It may be hard work, but they may not realize that there is this potential solution. And if I do go into a solution part, they will tell me how that is not possible. It's not possible in our climate. It would cost too much, and all other various things.
With that, so what you're John's made a very good point. The beekeepers are not, he said the beekeepers are not the customers for this problem. It's the people who hire the beekeepers. Is that valid? Is that true?
Yeah, if you go with the pollination as a service, then farmers are the ones that pay the beekeepers, then yes.
Yeah. So in that case, you do your user research with the farmers rather than the beekeepers. Yeah. So, and again, remember, you're only, apart from giving them an idea of the vision that you have, you're not talking about your solution at all in this first instance. You're just getting that understanding of the problem. Because if you look at that Henry Ford example, there you'd be saying, well, what are some of the challenges that you're like finding, and again, you would want to if I'm thinking about, and again, I don't know exactly who Henry Ford's first customers were, but I'm assuming that they might be kind of wealthy people relying on horses to get around. And so then you might say, well, what are some of the challenges? And it's like, well, I'm going to a business meeting and I'm in a nice suit, and I get there, I'm covered in mud and I look really unprofessional. That's the kind of problem where the solution fit is, well, what happens if you don't have a horse? Actually, you could be in this covered car that stops you from getting all muddy and helps you make a professional impression. So do you see how that's different? It's like by getting them to talk just about the problems and what they're doing day to day, you're then creating the context and understanding that the problem that the car is then eventually going to solve. Okay. All right, I'm going to continue on. One sec, after I've had a quick cough. Sorry about that, everybody. I just figured you'd probably rather do this than me cancel because my throat's hurting. So, okay, so once you've done the user research analysis, you've done the interviews, then the analysis. So, and again, this is not academic analysis. So the standard of analysis is not kind of academically rigorous, but what it is designed to do is to find patterns of problems that people have told you that they have and the impact of those problems. And so that you're looking across all the people that you've interviewed. Within Leapsheet, we have templates to help founders to actually do this. I haven't prepared slides to show you how to do it now because I'm going to come on to the kind of value proposition design in a second. And then the reporting element is actually using storytelling tactics to create, and again, we've typically done an infographic for founders so that they can present what they have found. So, and I'm going to use an example that we worked, actually, no, I won't because that will distract us. But the reporting is really designed to resonate with the individuals that you've interviewed, to remind them of the success that they and others like them are looking for, inform them about how they and others like them are spending their time and some of the challenges and how those challenges are stopping them from being successful. So you're kind of like empathizing with the problem and explaining that it's not just them, like they're representative of many people who have a problem just like them. So you're kind of reminding the individuals that you interviewed of the problems that they told you about, and you're explaining some of the impact of that, so that you kind of get the impetus for them to have a second meeting with you. Let me just go to that. And so you typically send that report to them, and then whilst you're kind of between that reporting and then having a second conversation with them is when you do the critical elements, which are the foundations for that future viral product, which is value proposition design, to look at the most compelling pants on fire problems that they have and some of the pains that they have told you that they have, and also the jobs to be done on the customer side. And then to think about on the solution side, and again, in an ideal world, you would do this without having your idea about your solution, but you're likely to then think about what you thought your idea for the solution was, and then actually match pain relievers and potential gain creators and benefits of that system. And so you're kind of matching your customer with your first solution idea so that you can work out what needs to be in your first solution. So your first solution should never be the all singing, all dancing version of your product. It just needs to be enough to be able to deliver value and create and solve a problem for a customer. And the first bit of it is never a product. It has to be a concept, because if you go back and show the people that you interviewed here a finished product, they will never tell you that your baby is ugly. They will go, oh yeah, that looks great. Yeah, lovely. Whereas if you show them a scrappy solution concept, whether that, and again, kind of the way that you can do this now, many of our customers use something like Figma or PowerPoint slides, so it's obviously scrappy. Show the solution concept and say to them, look, you told us these are the problems and the challenges that you had. This is the solution that we think would be able to help you in the context of your jobs to be done to be successful. Would you use it in this way? Like how, tell me kind of what wouldn't work for you. And then you get a load of really great feedback about things that they love, things that they don't like. And that can go into bug fixes that you have to get done before you have a first solution. And then also feature requests that are a bit kind of less urgent and important to do. Okay, and this all helps you to prepare for paid pilots, which I'll just introduce next, which is where you have a solution that you can sell, you have a plan for how you're going to manage the pilot on a small scale way, and you have regular check-ins with your customers so that you can make sure that the solution technically works and they get the benefits from it. Oh, I'm just going to have a quick cough. Okay, so that's kind of how the process works in a linear way. Obviously, there's some kind of back and forwards, and sometimes you can skip steps. If kind of people absolutely love what you do, you can skip some of these steps, but usually there's some kind of back and forward between them. Now, I'll pause there for any questions, and then I'm going to take us through the practical bits next, which is the value proposition design.
So in the conversation about this interview where we do the customer problem fit, and then we do the problem or customer solution fit conversation about whether this submarket likes that solution, when that's done well, that can reduce a number of features you need to build by a really big number, at least half, maybe as much as 70%. So you reduce your costs, you reduce your time, and you identify that one feature that's unavailable anywhere else so that it creates value for that specific submarket. Yes. But I could have like 5 or 10 submarkets that I have discovered as I've talked to these 100 people in my various experiments that all leaned in. How do I choose which of those I should do something with?
Yeah. So this one here, John, is where there's a slight discrepancy between your approach to user research and ours, because I think we're a lot more stricter with the segmentation. So for example, like the and I'll go back to the occupational therapists that I was telling you about earlier on who are in pilot phase. So the specificity of that group is there, and this is a startup that's based in Australia. There, it's Adelaide-based occupational therapists who are who are looking to get private income for themselves, so not working for a company anymore, who are specifically looking for help to get marketing and sales done for them. So it's a very specific segment. Whereas, and again, when you're doing user research, many of the people that you meet will be in that segment and some of them will be outside of it. And so from the first few interviews that you do, you'll soon start to learn what characteristics actually make for an ideal adopter customer and which don't. And so then you can keep the analysis separate for others. So for example, like with another founder I'm working with who's doing user research right now, the one doing it with the students. So he's done from these 20 interviews, he's found that and again, he hadn't had any gender in his first set of user research interviews, but then he'd spoken to kind of a few men and a few women. He'd found that the women were much more motivated by not having debt in their future, whereas the men just kind of thought, well, I'll get to that when I'm a bit older. And so then he re-segmented down to then only interview women, because his interpretation was that it was the women that would be much more compelled to be early adopter customers to work with him, because the men were less bothered about the debt that they were incurring. And so as you do these user research interviews, you can, and again, it's not it. There is a method to this, but a lot of it is through the insights that you get, and of course, those are going to be different dependent on who it is you're speaking with. But those kind of principles apply. Like and again, that applying the early adopter characteristics to it is probably a really good way to do it. Like, did you get, from these segments and characteristics, who do you think are going to be your early adopter customers, and what are the characteristics that make them the same?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, so the activity I'm going to take you on now is value proposition design. And so what that does, and again, I would assume that for the purposes of kind of the session today, that people have not done user research, but I will just check, has anybody done user research in the way that I've described? Feel free to put it in the chat.
Not seeing anything yet.
No, okay, no worries. Also, I hope it's not distracting me constantly coughing. As I mentioned, I did just want to make sure that you weren't disappointed thinking you were going to come to something and then I cancelled. So I hope it's not distracting. I'm doing the occasional cough. All right, now, and I'll also ask in the chat, who has anybody done value proposition design as an activity before, or and I guess also or heard of it?
Ron says yes to VP design.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Okay. All right. So we're gonna do this today. And what I'll do, John, we tried a couple of weeks ago to use Google Chat to add information in, but it probably is not the ideal format. So I'll get you to kind of, as I go through these, I'll give everyone time to add kind of their specific situation into the comments so that then at the end you can extract the chat and get the information. I'm happy to share our template for value proposition design as well. I'll do that after the session so that you can focus on kind of learning rather than doing. Okay, all right, now, so I'm just going to kind of introduce kind of how this works and fits together. So the business model canvas is basically the business plan for startups, and the two sections, and again, this is another Alex Osterwalder oriented model, but the two core elements from this business model canvas that we're going to focus on today is exactly who your customer segment is, and again, of all possible segments that you could ever go after and service and deliver solutions to, what exactly is your hypothesis of the first customer segment that you would service, and then what is your value proposition or offer to them? And again, this is a hypothesis typically at this stage. Now, what value proposition design does really well is it looks, and again, you'll recognize some of these headings from user research, which is the input into this. So on the customer profile side, you've got the jobs to be done, so kind of how they're spending their time, which was question 1 from that user research. And then you've got the pains or the challenges that are keeping them up at night, which go here. The gains, this typically does not come from user research unless people are saying to you something like, oh, I wish there was a solution for this, or I wish that. Then you can get some gains from your user research conversations. Sometimes this is something that you leave blank. And then what value proposition design does is once you've listed those out, it then enables you to plan out and think through what about your offer would relieve those pains or create those gains. And remembering like the difference between a pain and a gain and how important it is to your customers is, and again, I mean, this is true back to your kind of your sculpture art point earlier on. People are typically looking to solve pains. Like that's why people take painkillers. They're not necessarily looking to create gains. Like that's why people often buy vitamins but then don't eat them, or don't buy them either or. And then the last one is what exactly are the benefits that you think a person could have from using your solution? And so like it sounds quite simple, but and then kind of between these two, for the top pains, and again, we typically suggest the top 2 or 3 pains, what exactly are the relievers for those top 2? Like you must never try and tackle all of the pains and all of the gains at once, because you'll end up with a Frankenstein product. As John and I kind of are really keen to impress on everybody, your first product is not the one that's going to go viral eventually. It is just the smallest element of value that you can deliver to individuals to get feedback on what works and what doesn't. And then, of course, if more features and more functionality is needed, you can build that over time. Like I've worked with too many founders who spent all of their resources creating this all singing, all dancing product that no one has ever used because there's no problem or the features are too overwhelming. So kind of really critical point, don't try and build something fabulous and amazing first time around. Like think back to all of the companies, which I'll kind of go on to in a minute, who started really small, but of course now you see they're all singing, all dancing products. You never start there. Okay. So that's value proposition design. If you've got any questions on it, feel free to ask in the chat. So now the steps that we're going to go through, and you're welcome to, if you want to, you can add these into the chat. If you're not in a position to do this yet because you're still learning, then I would suggest trying it with an example that you can think of, because then you'll know how to do this for next time. So we're going to start by brainstorming your customers' kind of jobs, pains, and gains. Then we're going to rank them. Then we're going to brainstorm your value proposition, pain relievers, and gain creators, and prioritize the solution. Then kind of think about what whether that's a good fit or not, and then I'll talk to you about what the next steps are and how to take this forward. I'm going to use a Leap Sheep example for this. All of the things that Alex Osterwalder has kind of publicly as examples are too high level to be useful, is my experience. So I'm going to show you the level of detail that we've gone into for our own version of this at Leap Sheep. So I talked to you at the very beginning about kind of the two questions that you need to think about. The first one is around, the customer segment. So what exactly is your ideal customer, your beachhead segment? And so for us, it's first time early stage startup founders who have left corporate jobs to start startup. We've been in business for a while, so we have other segments as well, but this is the one that I'm going to use to illustrate this point. Now, the context of these first time founders is that they've typically hired software developers, built their product, and have paid marketing agencies to find customers, but they don't have paying customers. Now, our offer to them is our solution, which is called Startup Builder. So we coach startup founders to go from 0 to their first million in revenue. So you can see here that offer statement is the kind of very specific, the reason why we've got this is to show these founders how they can actually get customers, because that right now that is their biggest pain point, is no customers. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to work on this. The only things you really need to do is kind of what's your hypothesis of your customer segment, and what is the offer that your hypothesis of your offer to them, and then that will set the scene. So feel free to add it to the chat, and I'll give you a few minutes.
Lower your screen and let people see everybody else. Hi, Tom.
Yeah, my question or customer segmentation depends a lot on go-to-market strategy. Like if I go with funding from VCs, then to me it seems like, yeah, I can build a big solution and go directly with, say, a robot, which costs a lot to develop, a lot to sell, and so forth. But if I bootstrap and I try to iterate and have a lean approach, then I basically try small steps, small devices, small apps, try to get natural growth.
You're
or maybe
articulating a product-centric question. And so the question is, who's your customer and what's their biggest problem? And after you've answered that question without a product, then what are the different pathways by which you can build a quick and rapid path to cash flow positive?
Yeah.
So that's all
my
customer development
depends.
work. That's not product development work.
My customer depends a lot on the route I take. If I go with VC funding,
if you do not have traction, the VCs will not fund you.
And user research is evidence of traction, because if you're clear on who your customer is, you go out, do those 20 interviews, and then put a solution concept together, which does not require product development. You may have a wait list of, say, 15 out of the 20 people that go, I commit, like a letter of intent, like I commit to paying X price, whatever it is, if and when this is built. And again, we typically encourage people to bootstrap, because fewer than 1% of founders raise capital, so the odds are against you. But if you take that to investors to build kind of a proof of concept that can then be validated with this first group, that's user research is still traction. Okay. All right. I haven't seen any kind of specific customer segment identified and offer statement hypotheses. Is that because people don't have them and would just like me to go through this as an academic exercise, or are you still thinking? Because I can do both. In the last one of these, we had people doing it for themselves, and then I was able to give feedback in real time, and I'm very happy to do that. Oh, okay. I'll just give a few more minutes for typing. Thanks, Priscilla. Thanks, Stephen, for letting us know. Thanks, Luca. I will just reshare mine on the screen just so people can, for those who are still working on it. Okay, and so Archim, you've said backyard beekeepers are the customer. And again, do you have a hypothesis yet for kind of what the solution is? I think you mentioned robotic beehives to.
Yes, the solution is first a web app, then a small device which just sends telemetry data, measures temperature, weight, and so forth. The next step is a vision, so a camera. That's a second device, and a third device would be a robotic beehive.
Okay, and to do what? Because if you see here, like with the offer statement for Startup Builder, we coach startup founders from 0 to the first million in revenue. So that's the result. Like what, with the offers that you're thinking about, what's the result?
Not sure I understand the question.
Is it more, is there like, you know, is it these systems to generate more bees? Is it to generate more profit?
You're talking about the problem. The problem, well, there are three problems. One is physical labor. That's what the robot eventually will solve. Second is the observability. I don't know what's happening to my bees. They can die. I need to inspect them. I lack that information basically.
Okay.
And
yep.
Yeah. So
yeah. So
devices,
so the question that, and again we're about to come straight to that problem, but for your hypothesis of the offer statement to start with, my question to you is what's the benefit that you're creating for the customer from your solutions?
it's observability of colonies helps to reduce loss, so you can intervene faster, you can save your bees and thus not lose money.
Yeah.
So
okay.
if you don't inspect bees, they can get sick and they will die over the winter, and you will not only lose a living organism, you will also lose all of the frames that was inside. You'll kind of need to work much more to recover from this.
Okay, so I think it's to save on kind of either like bees dying or save labor costs, I think is the core thing I'm hearing from that offer statement. All the things you told me are benefits, which we're going to come on to in a minute. It's just I'll pause there because we're going to, everything you've told us so far, we're going to go through in a bit more detail.
Well, for backyard beekeepers, it's not only the cost, it's also like your cat. You don't see it only as something that catches mice, right? So it's also a living organism that you care about.
Yep.
For industrial beekeepers, it may be a bit different.
So who's your customer? Is it kind of hobbyists or is it commercial?
Well, like I said, if I go lean and bootstrap, it's backyard beekeepers at first. once we reach the robotic beehive, that would be sold to industrial beekeepers more.
Okay. For the purposes of this exercise, I'd probably suggest go for backyard beekeepers, just because, and again, you know, there's various things I may not know about, but it just gives you somewhere to start with, because otherwise the problems are different, the benefits are different. Okay. All right, Priscilla, I see you have yours. So let me just go into this a bit more. So you've got, so your specific customer, I'm going to start there. So women, late 20s to early 50s, LGBTQ and BIPOC communities, busy life. Yeah, that's a really specific, great segment to start with. Then you've got an app that it's based on strong game design first. Okay, so, and again, I like where you're going with this offer. I think it's enough for now, because I think what I think I'm taking from this is that it's because I don't think the benefit is enjoyable retention. That's for you, the retention on them, you reusing it. Whereas I think for them it's something that's compelling, that isn't designed to kind of, you know, take them on this like self-help situation, but it's something that they're compelled to want to use repeatedly to make them feel good.
Yeah. We've also went to a lot of conventions and talked with these individuals, and a lot of it is just feeling left out from feeling comfortable with fitness and interest in things like that, that there are a lot of products out there that doesn't really suit their needs or their interests, I guess. So so we are pushing for that, to kind of mask more that this is something that is a part of your life that you want to do, versus this is a chore, because their lives are already filled with chores.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, that's a great starting point. Katya, I'm going to come to you next. So you've got astronomy enthusiasts. I would encourage you to be a little more specific about astronomy enthusiasts. Like, kind of, you know, is there any demographic information that can help you define them a little more? Like, are they in like Facebook astronomy groups? Are they looking to like build more astronomy elements into their lives? Like, just, and again, I may not be coming up with the right ones, but I'd just be a little more specific. You know, are they middle class, upper class, so that they can afford to kind of implement these ideas? Just a bit of extra thought there. And then in terms of the benefit that you've got, or the offer statement, so it's the fine art closely matching telescope imaging, so that they've got that kind of beautiful view actually within their home, so they can enjoy everything around astronomy, but they're seeing it within their own home. And again, you know your customer better than I do. Those are just some ways that I would suggest from my experience with startup building. Okay. All right. Now, let's go next on to the customer profile side. So I'm just going to, so I talked about these already at a high level, and I'm just going to show you a few prompts so that you know kind of how to fill these out. And then we'll do them kind of, you know, I'll get you to think about the jobs to be done that you know about your customers. And again, right now, these are all hypotheses. It's fine to do this as a hypothesis, but I would strongly recommend doing user research so that you actually know these factually and in the words of your potential customers. Now, with jobs to be done, you want to start with their core goal, or what success looked like, which was that first question, that second question from user research. Then go through all of the jobs to be done that they have included. And the reason for this is so that you can think about your solution when it comes to that in terms of its context and how it sits within their jobs to be done. I met a founder last week called Jackie, who's the CEO of Clearbrief. And one of the critical elements that she has done, which has made her solution so successful, is that she has fitted it in to an existing job to be done for her customers, who are lawyers, who are already using Microsoft Word to create their briefs. And so her solution is within Microsoft Word. So, and this is one reason why the jobs to be done that you know about your customers are so critical, is because if you can fit your solution into one of their jobs to be done, or like it starts there and then perhaps it removes others of their jobs to be done that they don't value or want, then it is a lot easier to get people to start working with you and using it. So the types of jobs to be done people may have told you about, they may be functional, so things that people need to do. Like for me, like I need to make sure that my kids get to school every day. That's a functional job. It's not one that brings me joy, but I need to do it. It might be social, like, how do I want to look good or gain status? Like, that kind of thing for me might be like I show up at the school gates a couple of times a week so that I'm not seen as an absent parent. And again, I'm talking about these in my life rather than in my job. But then kind of personal and emotional, I want to feel good. Like, maybe I'm going for a run 3 or 4 times a week so that I actually feel good. These are, again, just examples of jobs to be done. Now, particularly if you're in a B2B situation and you're selling to businesses or companies, then you also want to think about the context of the jobs, or the what I call supporting jobs. So am I buying value? So am I thinking about what to buy? Am I co-creating value? So I might be providing feedback, whether negative or positive. In another example of co-creating value might be kind of advocating or telling other people about a solution, or I might be transferring value. Like, I might be, sorry, the advocating or telling other people is actually part of this transferring value. You may not need to document these supporting jobs. I don't typically use them, but it's just kind of worth knowing they're there. And then the critical one, which may be important for you, is the context of the job. So you remember when I showed you our customer segment and offer, I also talked about the context. So these founders have already spent money on software and on marketing and haven't got any customers. So that's an example of context. So I'll just get you to, and I'll show you kind of the one I've got for this example of the kind of the goal and the jobs to be done, and then I'll come back to the rest. So this is the jobs to be done and the goals for the founders that we interviewed that were in that segment. So the core goals, and again, this is all based on user research, but for you, this is likely to be based on your hypothesis. So their goals were to find customers before I run out of runway with the right approach to marketing. And secondly, to sell my product to paying customers. And of course, here often we find that people think that they have to sell a whole product, like, they're all singing or dancing, rather than just the first version. So those are kind of the two core goals that we uncovered from user research. Then the jobs to be done, we're hiring a marketing agency to market the product, kind of paying for Google Ads, paying for SEO optimization, and finding referral partners. So these were the jobs to be done that founders were doing in order to help them with these goals. So I'll leave that on the screen. Yours may look very different to this. So for example, with the example of the beekeeper, just to kind of start you off, the goal might be that they're looking, and again, backyard beekeepers, they might be looking to live like a really balanced, fulfilling life. Like that might be their goal. And then their jobs to be done is, they're working in the day, they're like, I don't know if they're women or men, but like perhaps, and maybe that doesn't matter, like, they're kind of living their lives, they're enjoying hobbies, one of which might be beekeeping. Those are the kind of ways that you'd start to populate this. So I'll leave this on the screen so that you can have a think about what your jobs to be done are for your customer. And again, you're welcome to put them in the chat. feel free to ask any questions as you go. Otherwise, I'm assuming everyone's writing in the chat.
It post earlier the value proposition canvas from Strategizer. So there's some foundational work back with the Strategizer folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Priscilla, well, get started on yours. And great job just getting out there. That's the point of the session today, is so I can give you some feedback and help you get started. Okay, so I'm just going to come up again to remind myself of
I guess
your
something
customer. Yeah.
I might be in a position, a different position than other folks, because we have been working on this project for a while, so I do have a team already established.
Yeah.
But we're still like in like a, I don't know if you want to call it like a pre-seed phase and stuff, because we've all been like self-funding it
Yeah.
from so I don't know what you call that, but we do have like an established team. So we have some stuff that's already out of the way. But
So
it's more like, how can we continue? Because
So Priscilla,
yeah.
I think what you have done is you've done your own jobs to be done rather than your customers' jobs to be done.
Oh, okay. I think I misunderstood then.
No, you're okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. So and again, you may or may not know this, but based on the individuals that you had, so women in their late 20s to 50s, you know, they've got a busy life, they've got that depression or neurodiversity kind of element, and then kind of interested in gaming. So for them, like their goal, and again, I don't know what their goal would be. I'm going to make some suggestions, but you're the expert in who they are, not me. So it might be something like, you know, their goal might be to kind of maintain equilibrium so that I can live a balanced life. Like, or it might be, you know, there might be another goal. And so then their jobs to be done would be things like, you know, like getting to work, like working. It might then be, you know, like cooking, seeing friends, having some downtime, and then there might be an element of their jobs to be done that is all around helping them stay in balance. Like, are they doing yoga or sport? Are they gaming? Like, what is that? And that's how I would do those jobs to be done for you.
Yeah, okay. I misinterpret the question, I
No,
think.
you're
So
okay. No, because of course I've given you an example, and of course it's our example with founders being our customer. So no, you're fine.
I see.
It's a good lesson for me to be crystal clear. It's for your customer. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think on that sense, I think for them, the things that they've said is usually the biggest issue is falling off the wagon. So it's usually like, I'm really busy. I'm like a full, like I'm a mom. I
Yep.
have work or things like that, and I don't have time to, like, I'm too tired to do all these other things. Or I mostly it's like mentally unpacking, and like I don't have the I've been cognitively overloaded and
Yep.
things like that. And when I do other things like going to the gym, sometimes it feels good. I can get to the gym for like every day for 3 weeks, but then something happens, like maybe my child gets sick, or I get reprimanded at work or something, and then I miss that day, and then I don't do anything after that, and I just fall off the wagon. So we're kind of
Yeah.
targeting people who can't get back on the wagon, and how we can use that mentally, I guess.
Yeah. So what you've just said, I'd split it out in the following ways, because you've got the functional jobs to be done that they have to get done. So that's thing like they can't, you know, suddenly stop being a mom. They can't suddenly stop going to work. So I'd have those as like the functional jobs to be done that they have to get done. And then I'd include the kind of ideal jobs to be done, which are things that they really want to do for their own well-being, kind of put that at the bottom. And then some of the things that you talked about are actually pains. So, sometimes I'm not getting to the things in my day that make me feel good and stay balanced because this happens or this happens or this happens, and I'd include that as pains, and then separate the jobs to be done out in that way. Because, and again, remember, because you're already working on this for a long time, this may help you with some of your solution concept design, but it also may help you with your marketing, because if you're starting to do things like LinkedIn, and again, those kind of people are probably on LinkedIn for their professional life and perhaps on Instagram or different channels for their personal life. And so what that means is that these things that you're pulling out now can help you to attract those individuals, because you can start to use their language in the way that you kind of post about things on social media. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Archim, you said, so I need to inspect hives in the summer, treat them against mites, talk to other beekeepers. So here, these are critical elements insofar as their hobby, which is the beekeeping. And of course, you've got the elements, which is like how much of their time are they spending on this? Like what other jobs to be done have they got outside of beekeeping? Because, and again, when you're so focused on a solution, it's easy to think that your customers are only spending time on things that are relevant to your solution. But of course, in the same way that I've just kind of called out for Priscilla, you've also got these individuals who've got kind of busy lives and this is a hobby for them and they're doing other things. And so it is worth putting the context to these jobs to be done. And of course, there's a seasonal element to them as well. So things that they're doing in the summer or in fall, in winter, in spring. So I would just encourage you to think about how beekeeping fits within their other kind of their outside life, just because, and as I mentioned, otherwise you assume that this is a big problem relative to the others. But like if they're say they're retired, maybe actually they've got massive like healthcare treatment commitments, or they travel a lot, and so that is important, so that you can think about the context when you're trying to work out how important this is in relation to other things. Okay. Okay, Drew, I'll just do these jobs to be done, and then I'm going to come on to the pains side. And Katya, I think you've got stuck. A minute. Oh, okay. Yeah, so Katya, I can see why you've got stuck, and I might come up with some suggestions for you. And again, remember, I am not the expert in your customers. You either are the expert in your customers or you'll need to become the expert in your customers through user research. Okay, so Drew, you said, I'm just going to remind myself, Drew, of your customers. Okay, so in the chat. Did you add your customer and offer, Drew, to the chat?
No, I did not. I apologize for that. It was a little latent. Just some like hobbyists for technical sport.
Yep.
Wanted to be a little vague, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Hobbyists for technical sports. So they're doing this as a hobby. Is that right?
Yes, and sometimes they can sometimes they can get hired to do specific jobs. They can advertise their own services to be sort of like a teacher or a mentor as well.
Right. Okay. And so they're employed in technical sport jobs, are they? That's their full-time job.
Let's see.
What's the context? Sorry. No, you're okay. No need to apologize. Oh, I can't hear you, Drew. You've got you on mute.
My apologies. Yes, I do believe that there are people that are hired full time for this, and I still need to do more of my user research on that end.
Yep. Okay. And so they're full time working in technical sport type job. And then do they have a goal? Like if you think about their goal or kind of what success looks like for them.
These are some very great questions. These are very compelling questions. I'm going to write these down. So
no, you're okay.
Yeah.
So just so everyone's clear, one of the reasons why I'm taking that, because I've thought a lot about what topic to talk about today around this topic of virality, and the reason I'm doing this now is that so much of the time you've got such a clear idea of your solution and how to launch that product to market that this is a step that's so critical, but it gets missed all the time. So a lot of what I'm doing, like, you don't have to know all the answers right now. All I'm doing is building the case that I want you to want to know these answers. And typically the best way to find it out is through user research. Like ChatGPT can't tell you this, like surveys can't tell you this. Only specific direct one-on-one questions that you're asking
I've only done
to these individuals.
So far, I've only done hobbyists. So my bad for saying yes to like the full time. I
Oh,
was saying there
that's
could be a
okay.
potential, but so far I've only talked to hobbyists and identified some of the issues there. So
okay, all right. So in that case, so they're hobbyists for around technical sports. And when we say technical sports, what kind of sports is that?
Like it has to, like people that do like you know, for instance, like let's say diving or something, people that do a lot of sports, they want to upload data. So if I want to implement like APIs or geolocation, stuff like that, that they want to collect data, there's not much information out there about certain areas where people can go and do things. So
okay. So I'm not sure that the jobs to be done are appropriate for hobbyists, are they? These are for the technical sports, the people who are in those jobs.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but and again, and I'm for everyone on this call, thank you so much for sharing. My point here is not to try and catch you out. Here, Drew, all I would say is that you've got at the moment 2 personas, one of which is, or well, actually, I'm not gonna bring personas into this because that will add more complexity. So I'm just gonna keep talking about customer segments or like very specific beachhead segments. Is you've got hobbyists who do this as a hobby, and they have their own goals and their own jobs to be done. And then you've got the kind of professional technical sports people who are employed in those jobs. They will have their own goal, and then the jobs to be done that you've got are for them. So and it's critical. And again, you'll want to focus on one or the other, because otherwise everything around the solution and the product and the marketing is unlikely to work for both because the context is so different.
Yeah, it's a good distinction. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate
That.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then okay, so Kasia, you've got stuck, and I can see why you have got stuck. And one of the reasons is because typically art is a lot harder to tie art into a job to be done and a pain point and a problem. And again, we've worked with founders in that scenario who are looking to create ways to entertain and to delight. So here I'd still think it's worth document. And again, you may not know this if you haven't spoken to those astronomy enthusiasts that you talked about, but you do want to know, like, what kind of what's important in their life, like what are their goals, kind of how are they spending their time. Are they, they might be doing things like going on like astronomy trips, they might be going to the theater, they might be working full-time jobs, they might be retired, like I don't know what those things are, but you'll need to kind of check and find that out. And then for you, it might, the kind of pains that you might elicit from user research might be around their life. And I'm not an astronomy enthusiast, but I am a Northern Lights enthusiast. And so, for example, if I was one of the people in your segment, and I am not, but if I were trying to kind of think about how that would be, one of my pains is that I can never work out when the hell the lights are going to come out, and I missed them last week, and that was actually very painful. Even though it's a small part of my life, that was painful to miss them. And so the kind of gain that I might be to have a way to kind of guaranteed see some of these amazing things. And of course, that's how you can tie jobs to be done, pains and gains with, in a minute, your solution side of things. And again, they might come up with many more things that are not related to your product or your solution, but those are still important. Because then you know who these people are, what's important to them, and then you can position your solution in how it interacts with their life. Okay. Okay. Also, okay, I'm gonna keep going. I know I've got a couple of comments, and then Chumis, I've seen a direct message from you. If it's all right, I'll get to that at the end, or I'll message you separately afterwards if that's all right. And yeah, Priscilla, I'd strongly advise against surveys for now. The reason is that for this, when you don't know what you don't know, and actually, because Priscilla, have you done user research already? Like,
minor. Right now, like the research that we did was before we started the project to see if
yeah,
the project was worth doing.
yeah,
And then we haven't done the survey, like another survey for a while. Some of our other research has been into things that dip into other like apps, I guess, to kind of, I don't really know how to word this, to kind of make a educated guess on like what customers will want and what they will pay
yeah,
for. And so we've added features because of those things. Like, hey, there's trends where like this part of the industry with the same specific uh user group that we're targeting like happen to spend a lot of money on this and stuff. So we're gonna start like adding some of those features in there, and then we see another like demographic that we're also targeting doing something else for another thing. So again, a lot of this is sort of like educated guessing.
yeah. My suggestion, because right now it sounds like you've got a lot of opportunities that you could pursue, like different features for different types of individuals and different things. My concern, and again, just based on the experience I've got with founders, is that you're trying to be too many things to too many people. I would, and again, feel free to take or leave this because we've only just met. But my strong suggestion is avoid surveys at all costs, because they don't build your personal relationship with anybody. People do not spend time thinking about the answers that they give to surveys, and so the data that you're going to get is really is it's not going to really help you understand exactly who these people are and whether they would want to pay for your solution. So my suggestion would be is you've got a great customer segment that you've identified there. I would strongly recommend doing user research with people who are in that dynamic, and then going back to them quite soon after and presenting kind of what you talked about as a user research follow-up conversation. So kind of presenting some of the challenges that you know that they have and that they've told you they have, and then saying, look, this is how we're thinking to design our game so that it overcomes, we think you would use it here. We think it would overcome some of the challenges here. Like, would love your kind of thoughts and feedback on that. And then you want them to be working. And if they say yes, like absolutely, yep, really want this, willing to pay for it, then you can spend time with them kind of watching how they interact with the game, what things they like, what things they don't. And it doesn't take long, but it's so critical to make sure that you really know how people are using your product and what they're getting from it and how they're using it in their day-to-day lives. And it cannot be replicated with a survey.
Yeah, that's fair. We haven't done a survey for a while, but I think it sounds like I should just like avoid that.
Yeah.
In general, like if I think about doing it again, I should probably avoid it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Drew, thanks. I'm glad this has been eye-opening. I know we've kind of diverted away from value proposition design, but I do think all of the topics and the conversations here, I hope, have been really helpful for everybody. Kind of my big mission is to get this information in the public domain, so that it's like it can benefit kind of all of you and founders in your situation. And I'm trying my hardest to do that. Okay, all right, now I'm going to go back to this. Because we've only got 12 minutes left, and again, I'm happy to share the slides so you've got examples. I'm going to go through this kind of on as a theoretical element for the last bits, just so that you can see all of the steps, how they fit together, and then also what the next steps are, and I'll make them appropriate to everyone that's been contributing on this call. So I hope you don't mind that. Yeah, it's so many of the conversations around this are so critical and important to have. So I hope you still think it's been a good use of time. So hang on a second. Okay, so I'll continue on, and I'll just show you the rest. I will say, so Alex Osterwalder does have a book around around kind of how to do value proposition design. We have adjusted his models based on the fact that we've used them repeatedly with founders. So things like adding the goals at the top of jobs to be done is something new. And then there's a few other elements that I'll kind of go through now. So on the pain side of things, there's a couple of things that I want you to think about when you're talking about your customers' pains. And again, remember, right now, for many of you, these are hypotheses that you have about what their pain points are. The only way to really understand pain points is to actually do the user research. So when we think about pains, what exactly is a pain point and how do you frame it? So a pain is really anything that kind of annoys your customer before, during, or after they're trying to get something done, or it stops them from getting it done. And so there's kind of a number of ways that you can think about pains. So there's a problems like something that doesn't work, obstacles. So I think Priscilla, for you talked about the obstacle being if one of your one of these women has something that does something surprising that they're not expecting and is negative, then it's an obstacle for them doing half of their jobs to be done that keep them balanced. So that it's worth calling that out as a pain. And then there's also risks. So, one great example of risk in a B2B setting is kind of compliance. Like, if I'm in charge of compliance and there's a breach, like a security breach or a technical breach, then that's going to have a massive impact for me. Perhaps I might lose my job. Perhaps we end up getting sued, like whatever that is. But you can categorize these pain points in a couple of different ways. So sometimes there's a villain. So, for example, and I think Arjun, for you with the beekeeper, there might be a villain, which might be like, I don't know, like if there's a dog that comes in and like knocks over a beehive and all the bees disappear, like that's a villain. For us, sometimes the villain for founders are marketing agencies or software developers who take the money from founders, even though they know that founders haven't done customer discovery. And so they're kind of selling a product that a founder isn't ready for yet. And so that makes them a villain. Like by the way, I'm not saying any marketing agencies or software developers are villains per se, but that they become a villain for the founder because they've spent money on a solution that then isn't going to work for them. So that's a villain. Then in terms of the problem or the pain itself, there's three ways to think about it. There's an external problem. And so that external problem is, it's something that's really specific. Like I don't have a, and then I'll show you our leadership example in a minute. Like I don't have a playbook to how to build my startup. So therefore I'm making a load of guesses and it's costing me time and money that I'm wasting on doing the wrong things. Like that's an external problem. Like I'm having to spend more time and money because I don't have a clear guide. An internal problem is just as important. An internal problem is kind of how your customer is feeling about something. So for example, as a founder, like am I going to be able to do this? Like am I going to be able to make my startup successful? Like I know failure rates are high. Am I going to be able to successfully build this startup? And then the last one is philosophical. So then, and typically that's kind of like a moral or an ethical element. I always struggle with getting a good example for the philosophical problem. So I'm not going to try and add it in here because I struggle with this. And to me, the external and the internal problems are enough. John, if you have an example, you're welcome to add it in. If not, to me, these three are the main ones.
Yeah, no, this is a good place to start.
Okay, all right. Arjun, I see you have a question. I'll get you to put it in the chat if that's all right, just so I can go through and everyone sees this end to end. Okay, so on the pain point, and again, this is just an example for us because our customers are founders. You'll obviously do this for your own customers. Priscilla, thank you so much. I'll never forget that again. So you're teaching me things as well. Okay, so, and I mentioned, like we see this so much where founders have paid marketing agencies and they've taken their money, but they still don't have any customers as a result of those campaigns. So that's a villain. And again, be careful with villains because I never want to post anything publicly about villains because then you just look like you're trying to kind of criticize others. So just be careful about the villain. But the problem, internal and external, are really important. So this is an example for a founder from user research. So investments I've made in running ads, which is costing me $2,000 a month and not delivering results. I haven't found the right marketing approach yet, and I can't see another way. I spent 50K developing this product with 3 software developers, and I have impending runway issues. So all of these are obviously quite critical external problems, so they're externally observable. Then the internal problem, well, do I have the time to find and execute the right approach? I don't feel confident that I'm in control. And then sometimes people, like founders, have taken money from friends and family. Like I'm worried, I feel guilty. And then of course, here's an example of a philosophical one. Like I'm an intelligent person, I should be able to do this. So that's kind of philosophical. It's like actually I should have the skills to do this. So this is just an example from ours of the types of pains, and you'll want to do this for your own customers. Okay, as I said, I'm going to keep going through this so you can see it all kind of go. So I apologize you haven't got time to add on. I'm happy to be sent yours through like a LinkedIn direct message, and I'll give you feedback over LinkedIn. Now gains. So gains, remember, pains are the most important because people take painkillers, they don't necessarily take vitamins, but sometimes you get some ideas from your user research about gains. So for example, one of the things that we found from the user research or the pains is people said like, I'd actually kind of like someone to guide me through this and like help me course correct and kind of help me to work out what I need and when. And then this is another one is actually, what does agile, like how do I embed agile in my team? Because people that are in our customer segment have been corporate and working in corporates, a lot of them have got agile in their teams, and then they're like, well, how do I do that for a startup? Like actually that would be really interesting to know. And so we found this out from kind of doing the user research. Now that's everything around the customer profile. So, and Drew, back to your point. So you want one of these value proposition canvases for every different customer segment. So for you, you've got the full-time and then the hobbyists. Artgem, similar for you if you're doing hobbyist beekeepers versus commercial. Jobs are tasks or problems or needs, whereas gains are concrete outcomes that they actually are looking to achieve or help with. Again, keep it all about their problem on that customer profile side, not your solution. If you can, you want to make particularly the pains tangible. Like you'll see that I added cost. And again, cost isn't the only pain, but cost or time or something that makes something tangible so that people can really resonate with it and actually what the impact is. Sometimes you don't really understand the jobs to be done of your customers until you really dig into them. So, one thing I think you may have noticed is that you've kind of may not know what the jobs to be done of your customers are. So really keep thinking about what they are. And again, I've mentioned that a couple of times. Critical, don't forget social and emotional jobs. Like Priscilla, for you, for example, you've got a really clear focus on the kind of social and emotional side. And Artgem, you mentioned a lot of that around beekeepers and like, wanting, you rightly called me out on like a cat isn't just a mouse eater, it's a pet that they love. Same with the bees. So make sure that you include those into your profile on this side, because I think that's absolutely critical. Okay, then sorry, we didn't get very far through this, did we? The critical thing to do next is of all of these things, which are the most important? And you'll see here, I've highlighted this in bold. So you can see kind of bold all around for things that are absolutely critical. And it's this that will help you get to your first solution. Like you do not want a solution that tries to solve everything. So like you can see here, like I've taken the element of profitability and runway issues out of a first solution, because it's really just about, in this particular one, how to help with the marketing approach to actually get new customers rather than trying to solve for all the problems, internal and external. And here you can see for the goal, I've prioritized the second one, like actually being able to sell to paying customers, because that is what founders want. Yes, there's the right approaches to marketing, but actually the founders that we did the user research with, they wanted to be able to sell so that they could have traction, so that they could then find more customers and or raise capital. And again, here, the specific job to be done that was the critical one for us to focus on was not kind of the Google ads or the SEO optimization. It was how to market. And of course, in all the ways that you guys have seen today, it's hard to market when you don't really understand who your customer is. And that is the problem that most founders find themselves in. And so we have completely re-engineered how we position ourselves to be all around helping founders get to understand their customer enough so that they can build a solution that customer wants, so they can market and find and sell to customers. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of the pain relievers and gain creators and benefits, and I know I'm about to run out of time. John, what do you want me to do? Shall I keep going? I know people will have to leave and I want to respect people's time.
How long do you think you need?
Probably 5 minutes just to go through the rest, but I can also sum up the next. Yeah?
No, take 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. What I'll do before I go through this last bit, just in case anyone has a hard stop, I'll just show you kind of what comes next. Because I think that's kind of just as critical. So and again, thinking about how to use value proposition design. So if you already have a product in the market, which I don't think anyone does, then it just helps you with your clarity of message, because you can attach it to people's goals and jobs to be done and what your pain relievers are and all those things. If you're have an idea and you're thinking about developing an MVP, then and again, I will say before I go on to that, I don't think anyone has found this exercise easy. If you found it hard, it may be because you haven't been specific enough about exactly who your beachhead customer segment is, or because you haven't done the user research. So I would strongly suggest both of those. And then John, I'll share with you to share with everybody the 2 articles that we have to help you to actually do that practically. So then, as John and I have both said, you do not need to build an all singing, all dancing product for your first version. This exercise should help you with just the critical functionality that you need in order to build your first version. So only the relievers of the biggest pains that help people get a job to be done. That's the only thing that you need for your first solution. And really critically, only work with 5 to 10 paying beta customers, those early adopter customers, to start with. And then at any stage, so we still do value proposition design now. We have about 30 or 40 versions of them based on the last 9 years that we've been working. At any stage, you can do it to help you with prioritizing your roadmap. So how do you know what functions, features actually deliver real value to solve problems for your customers? And it also helps you to understand how you're different from competitors. So value proposition design has got so many great use cases and ways that it can help you. Okay. All right, so I just did that, so in case anyone has to leave. And now, if anyone has the next 5 minutes, I will go through the other side, which is the value proposition side. Okay. Let me go back to it. Okay. All right. Okay, so the value proposition side is this. So I typically, if you're going to start anywhere, start with the pain relievers first. So of those top 2 or 3 pains that you found from your user research, and again, right now it's just a hypothesis, you want to think, what exactly is going to relieve that pain that people told me that they have? And again, if the top 2 or 3 of your customers' problems are ones, if most of them are ones that you can't solve, then leave them out of scope unless they're interesting enough that you want to do them. So here, or you can think about how your solution can help relieve pains in other areas. So Priscilla, for you, for example, there's pains that your customer's having day to day anyway, and then there's ones that you're specifically helping with. And the more you can tie your solution to helping overcome other pains. So for example, like not being able to stay focused on things to keep you well, like your solution actually helps to do that, because it kind of gives them back that focus and gives them that downtime in order to be able to kind of live the rest of their life well. So and again, the pain relievers is a kind of an intriguing one from that point, but the more you can attach a solution that solves multiple pains of theirs, the better. So are you reducing or eliminating waste? Are you helping people to feel better? Are you fixing a bad solution with something that's way, way better? Is there a kind of a social consequence that you can relieve? So if somebody is, perhaps for me, like, I've finished a 2-hour workshop and I'm still not done, like, is there a loss of face that a solution could help me with sticking more to time, or, whatever that kind of stuff is? And then lastly, do you help to eliminate or reduce risk? And this is particularly true for B2B. Like if you have a solution that's going to reduce risk or compliance risk or any other that kind of risk, then you want to be super specific of how. Game creators. So here, there's a number of ways that you can create games. Interestingly, one of the delight your customers that we have, we never market, but we do pitch assessments for founders. And so when founders have gone through it, they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. But we don't ever market it. It's kind of a game that we create, kind of helping people see when they're ready to raise capital, but they only see it when they experience it. So we could do more to make that better. Then on the offering benefit side, so here, the benefit has got to be all around, like, are you helping your customers get their jobs done? What benefits, and particularly what tangible benefits can you give? Are you saving them time? Are you saving them money? One thing I'll call out is I often find that benefits are their offshoot of pain relievers. So there might be ways that you're relieving pains and then they create the benefits. So I typically start with the pains and then come up with the benefits from there. So let's show an example of this now, and then that will be all of the things. So just as an example, and again remembering that a lot of the pain points that we're relieving is around wasted marketing effort. So the problem, and again, hang on, let me just quickly eliminate that, because otherwise it looks like I've repeated the problem and I haven't. What I tend to do is, here we go. There we go. Okay, so with the pain relievers here, so you've got, in terms of the benefit, I'll start with the pain relievers. So we guide you to do the work that marketing agencies assume that you've already done. So here, like, there's complete focus on clarifying your beachhead segment. And again, I hope I've helped a few of you with that today, and also validating that beachhead segment through user research. And you can see here, like, founders are not ever coming to us going, oh, I need help with user research, because usually people don't realize that that's a thing that they need to do. And so we've tied our pain reliever to the pain of marketing agencies that assume you've done the work. And so for us, that's been something specific that it's taken us years to work that out. And then also, another pain reliever is actually we have a proven process to help people find paying customers, so they don't have any more failed marketing agency attempts. And so I'll just kind of focus on that there, because you can see here that and again, back to that Henry Ford analogy, like if you asked founders what they want, it's typically, well, I want better marketing. It's like, well, actually, and back to that Henry Ford, it's not a faster horse, which is the same of better marketing. It's actually something that's completely different, that then means that the marketing efforts don't go wrong. And I'll leave you guys to kind of look at these from the value proposition side. So yeah, I'll pause there because I know otherwise there's so much to cover, and I apologize, I've struggled to keep it within the 2 hours, but I do hope that I've been able to kind of help you individually with some of the challenges that you're facing on your journey.
Thank you so very much. I'm sure that we could spend another 30-40 minutes talking about any of the pieces of this. We do talk about this in some level of detail at the open coffees on Tuesday mornings. So Seattle Startups Open Coffee, there's various parts of this that come up over and over again. Thank you so much, Sarah, for engaging with this. Yes, Art, what do you have?
Thanks. You condensed like a whole, I don't know, a lecture in these 2 hours. I was wondering, what are the viral points that were advertised?
Yeah, so remember the point of this is, so really thanks for reminding me back to the kind of the point from the initial exercise. So the core elements of virality, there are a number of them. There's things like, and again, the one that I have focused on is being able to solve a real pain point, because typically most people try and go viral too early. And so this has all been around setting up the foundations for something that becomes viral. So by starting with a small group of people who are really interested and invested in your success, so with early adopter customers who you've done the user research with and who really want you to be successful, by starting there, you can make sure that you have your solution that works, that provides the benefits that people want and need, and then you can start to get them to tell other people about you. And of course, then, you know, not in your first version, but maybe in the 5th or 6th or 7th, you can start to do things like add in the ability for people to refer. Like I remember I did that with my entire address book from Airbnb. But all of that must wait until you have proved that your solution works and that people get value from it, and that you've done that on a very small scale way. And so it's those foundations that every single unicorn has ever done, but you don't see, that are critical to get right first and now. And I think for everyone on the call, that the value that I hope I've been able to explain to you now is how to do that first, to set the foundations, so that once you have that product that your customers love, that's when you can focus on the virality of, you know, things like having referral arrangements, you know, making things really shareable so that people can tell other people about it. But doing that too early means that you risk risking a product that goes viral when it shouldn't, because it doesn't deliver that value.
So there's no point in advertising a product that doesn't convert.
Okay, I can, yeah, I definitely the product needs to be at some stable situation where you get some conversion. I just wanted to share.
It has to convert a lot. Otherwise, you have a very high cost of customer acquisition. And the end result is that you produce what Priscilla was worried about in a slightly different context, but that question of people complaining about it because, you know, 70 out of 100 people think that was too much of a pain to do blah, and so then they bail and they make snide comments, right? So where's your 60% conversion rate rather than your 3% conversion rate? What room do you go in and find 60% of the people like throwing money at you? If you don't know where that room is and you don't know what word to use to get them to throw money at you, then it's not time to be viral. And if you do, then you know what words to use in your content so that you become viral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on my example, I want to start with the web app. I already started. And now I want, let's say I am stable in a year and I want to build in these growth loops. I heard this terminology before, like sharing. So I see beekeepers, they tend to share images of their bees with other beekeepers on Facebook. Yeah. So I could build something like that.
So I would start by listening to what the problems are enough that you can respond with value in a content way, and take the app idea and sit it on the shelf for 3 months and work on the question of how you can say a thing in a channel and get a bunch of people responding to you. Just build that muscle. And sadly, a bunch of us are on deadlines, and so we're going to call it today. If you want to continue the conversation, the Seattle Startups Open Coffee every Tuesday, we have this conversation on a regular basis. So, Sarah, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate your efforts. I hope you get better soon, and thank you for going through this, even though you were coughing. And everybody else, thanks for being here. Glad to see you, glad to be helpful and see where we can find you and connect you to resources in the community. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.